We'll have some fun for the next 45 minutes. All right? Cool. So, how have you enjoyed being on island so far?
Oh, I've loved it. I mean, I was saying to someone earlier, is there anybody who's come to Hawaii and gone, it's all right. I could take it or leave it. Too many pineapples.
No, very much understandable real quick. So, talk a little bit about the transition that is happening moving between the two shows. How much of a difference is it? I mean, it is two completely different production crews, so is it almost like leaving one family and going to another, or?
I was trying to describe it to someone today because they said, you know, which one do you prefer? And I said, it's a bit like comparing your girlfriend to your mum. It's really not a fair comparison. So it's early days. So, you know, I've been associated with The Walking Dead now for nearly 10 years. But, you know, I've been on Fear for 7 months. So it's new, but I'm enjoying them both. And we're trying to tell good stories in two different places and trying to, you know, bring the universes together.
So does that hint that we might be seeing some crossover at some point?
You know, anything's possible. But also, anybody who knows anything about The Walking Dead knows there's only so much I can say out loud in a venue like this without risking my life and career. So anything's possible, but at the moment that's mostly in the head of Scott Gimple and Ian and Andrew, so I can't really comment.
Fair enough, fair enough. It does have to be kind of interesting to be on a show where spoilers are so huge. How is that living with, sometimes you've already filmed everything, and for, I would say, months, you'll have to sit on that information? Like do you even have like a pal that you sometimes go, okay, don't tell anybody, but...
I have a really good friend, Sanjay, in Atlanta, and I can tell him anything because he doesn't watch the show. His wife watches the show, he doesn't watch the show. In fact, he calls the show That Vampire Show. And I say, Sanjay, it's not a vampire show. And he goes, yeah, but it is. And I go, no, it's not. He goes, yeah, but it is. So I can tell him everything and he just doesn't care, really. But the hardest thing is not being able to tell friends and family, you know, because they just, you know, they don't know who to, putting that pressure, particularly on my kids, putting that pressure on them of kind of saying, okay, this is happening, but you're not allowed to tell anybody. And, you know, like when I was going back into the show, and I found myself having to not outright lie, but basically lie to my kids. So that was kind of complicated.
Oh man, how many kids do you have?
I have 3 daughters.
Ah, that's really cool.
If you have daughters, lie to them. It helps. It's character building.
That is true. What was it always planned for you to come back to The Walking Dead? Like because when you finished off in season 1, and there was a break between there, were you pretty much just like chilling out, waiting for the...
No, I was working. I was doing other things. I mean, I think one of the things, I've said this before, but one of the things that people forget now that The Walking Dead has turned into what it turned into, you know, arguably one of the biggest shows in the world, is that when we were first doing the first season, I only did the first episode of the first season. At that point, they didn't know that they were going to get a second season, let alone that it was going to turn into what it would turn into. In fact, the general feeling while we were doing the pilot was that this probably won't go anywhere, but if it does, we might give you a call and you might come back. So that was all I knew right at the beginning. It was only really in season 2, and then when it went on to Netflix and people caught up on Netflix, that it turned into the phenomenon that it's turned into now. But at the beginning, you know, they said, this character comes back in the comic books, so it might come back in the show. But if I got a dime for every time someone said, your character's coming back, I'd be a millionaire. But so no, I didn't really know.
How long ago have you started your career? What did you get started with acting?
I wasn't doing acting at all, really. I was on my way to do something completely different, do a proper job. And then I met a girl, and this girl wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to be with this girl. So I followed her into an audition, not even knowing what an audition was. And I sat in the room because I was frightened that other boys would see how fine this female was. And the director came up to me and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, I'm with Lisa. And he said, "Well, if you're in here, you have to audition." And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "You have to do a speech and sing a song." So I said, "I don't have a speech." So he gave me a piece of paper and said, "Learn that." So I learned it and I did the speech. And then I sang a song. And you have to understand, you know, I'm South London in a predominantly black neighborhood, and he was a white guy, so I tried to come up with a song that I thought white people might like. And so I sang Feelings. He said afterwards, "I'm going to give you a role in this play, but don't ever sing that song again." And that was the start of it all.
Wow, that's amazing. From my understanding, because I trolled your IMDb page, you were a writer as well.
I am a writer, yeah. I acted in my first play when I was 16, as I just said, and I wrote my first play when I was 17, and it won a playwriting competition, and then it got published, and I was like, all right, so I'm a writer now as well. But I've just written a television series back in England called Save Me, and I'm in the process of writing the second season of that at the moment.
Nice. There is a big difference between British television and American television. It feels, I don't want to suggest you don't have the same creative freedoms, but with the BBC, you actually do have to have them kind of let you have the freedom to kind of grow, whereas at least here you have 100 different networks, including cable, to kind of branch out in. How is that? Is there anything else other than BBC you can pretty much have a show, or is that like the one?
No, it used to be the one. In fact, the first film I got made for the BBC, but my television series is on a cable network in the UK called Sky. Ah. So now there's, you know, a number of different places that you can have things made on, and Sky are one of the big production houses in the country at the moment, and they're very open and willing. I had a fantastic time working with them on my show. My show wasn't necessarily easy. It isn't an easy subject matter, but they were very supportive and very happy with the result.
There might be a few people out here who doesn't really know what that show is about. Do you mind sharing that with us real quick? 'Cause I would love to know.
Sure. My show is called Save Me, and it's about a character called Nelson Rowe, who's a kind of, we would call him a ne'er-do-well kind of functioning alcoholic. We call him a kind of pub guy. He's the guy at the end of the bar who tells you stories about how fine he was 15 years ago. A bit like me, really. And one morning he is arrested and accused of both grooming and encouraging his estranged daughter, 13-year-old daughter, to run away from home to be with him. And he didn't do it. But whoever did did it pretending to be him, and his daughter has been taken by someone who pretended to be him online for about 9 months. And the information they used to get her is real information. So he realizes whoever took his child is somebody that he knows. So he goes in search of both his child and the person who took her. And that's the story of it.
Oh wow, so it's a serious mystery.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Does it have any broadcast over here in the US yet, or just?
It does, but they haven't announced yet. So yet again, I'm not allowed to say out loud, because again, I will lose my life and livelihood. But what I can tell you is it will be on an American network in September.
Okay. Well, that's something to look forward to. And for those who might have just joined us, the microphone is over here to my right. And if you line up there, we'll definitely take any questions you have. And just to let you know, if left to my own accord, I really love your work.
Thank you.
I was introduced to you from Snatch. How many of y'all out there have seen the movie Snatch? Yeah, that was, how was it working on that project? Because with director
Guy Ritchie.
Brad Pitt in that movie as well. Bald-headed guy does some stunts.
Jason Statham.
There you go, him. How was it working on that set?
Also, Benicio del Toro.
Yes.
And who else? There were a lot of people in it. It was weird, really, because Guy. It was Guy's second film after Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and he got after Lock, Stock, because it made such a big deal, he got telephone calls from, the original cast list of Snatch, when myself and Robbie started doing it, was a who's who of Hollywood. He got telephone calls from actors who were saying, whatever you do next, I want to be in it. So Rade's character was originally going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, Al Pacino was going to be in it, Robert De Niro was going to be in it, and it was only timings that it didn't really happen. And we were not going to be in it, myself and Robbie. There were two other guys who were playing those parts, right up until we started filming on a Friday, and right up until the Wednesday before, two other people were playing the parts, and the producers convinced Guy that he needed more established actors to play those two roles. So I received the script Wednesday morning, I auditioned Wednesday afternoon, I got offered it on Thursday, and my first day of filming was Friday.
Wow.
And my first scene was in a caravan with Brad Pitt. And he came up to me, it's very strange, but he came up to me and he went, "You're Lennie?" And I went, "Yes." And he went, "I'm Brad." And I went, "Yeah, I know." Kind of know that one. But it was great. It was it was a lot of fun. It was a little surreal, but it was very male. I remember that. There was a lot of men on it, and a lot of testosterone. And in between breaks, there would be like men competitions. So I don't know if you know, but Jason Statham was like an Olympic diver before he became an actor, and that's where most of the stunts and martial art training came from. He was a diver, high dive, so spins into water type thing. So he would, if he saw a rope hanging up there, Jason would go, "But I could beat you up there and down again." And I go, "Okay." So we'd running up ropes and doing all of that. He also does the martial arts, and so does Guy, so they'd be sparring in between takes. Me and Robbie would be sat in the corner, I don't know, eating drinks, drinking tea. And, but it was very male. And straight after that, I did a film in which there were actresses, and I suddenly realised I was on this film for so long being a geezer that I had kind of forgotten how to talk to women. And I remember going to my sister's house for Sunday lunch, and I walked in, I went, "All right, sweetheart," and she went, "Who are you? And why are you calling me sweetheart?" So it was a little odd.
Wow. I just remember another actor on the film, the ex-soccer player.
Vinnie Jones.
Vinnie Jones. Yeah, that's the other one too. That's a lot of guys.
It's a lot of guys.
It's a lot of guys.
Yeah, and also a lot of the other actors and a lot of the extras and stuff were all, we call them back home faces, real sorts. They were real gangsters. They were the real deal. And so it was very, very male.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think we have someone up to the mic.
Is it on? It's not on. Now it is.
Hello.
Hello.
All right.
Hi, Lennie. Thank you for being here.
Not at all.
Before I ask my question, first off, we spoke yesterday, and I promise you I will catch up on Fear the Walking Dead, so no worries.
You have to, otherwise I'm going to come and find you. I know where you live, dude.
My question is, what was it like working with John Carroll Lynch on that one episode where it focused on what happened to Morgan in the past? Like, what was it like?
It was great, actually, because we were sequestered, firstly, so we shoot in Atlanta on The Walking Dead. We film mostly in a place called Sonoy, which is about 45 minutes outside of the city of Atlanta. But that episode, which we shot on location, was another hour outside. So they moved us out there, myself and John, and he was in the farmhouse, and I was in this cabin in the middle of the woods, and because we had to train, because he had like 3 days to become proficient in the bow staff and come to a level where he was good enough to look as if he was teaching me, and at that point I'd been working with the bow staff for almost a year. So he had a lot of work to do, so we would eat, I'd go over to the farmhouse, we'd throw a steak or some fish on the barbecue, and while it was cooking we'd work on our bow staff and our fights and stuff, so it was really good. But he did, I have to say, because sometimes I think the work that he did on that episode is underestimated. Not only, if you watch the episode again, John does almost all of the talking. I am just moody and silent in a cell for most of that episode, and he does all the talking. So he had to do all of that and learn the bow staff, and I think he did a remarkable job, and he's an incredible actor, and we were lucky to get him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi Lennie, thanks for coming out. I had an acting and tradecraft question for you. Americans are terrible at doing accents. I mean, if you ask us to do British or Cockney or anything, I mean, we do not come off. I mean, you can watch Tom Cruise or any of those to get an example. But both yourself and Andrew Lincoln do a fantastic job of doing American accents. So what kind of stress does that put on you, when you're learning your lines and stuff, and also since there's so many Americans on the cast, trying to blend in with that? And do you kind of stay in American accent when you're on the scenes, or do you bounce back and forth?
Thank you very much for your question. It's a really good question, actually. When I first came to the States to do a show called Jericho, I wouldn't stay in the American accent. So I had a kind of thing of once I crossed the line, so once they call action, I'm American, and the rest of the time I was English. And I did that right up until I came on to The Walking Dead as a regular in season 6. And working with Andy, he stayed in the accent almost from the moment he gets off the plane in Atlanta. He's in the American accent with everybody except his wife and kids. So just to keep the continuity of it, I did the same. So I thought this year I'm going to try it the way that Andy does it, and I have to say it's really helpful. There were things about it that I didn't realise that were that really helped me. Now my wife is, her family are French speaking, so my kids are bilingual, and one of the things that my kids said to me was, you don't really know you know another language until you dream and think in that language. And it's kind of like that when I'm on set now, because I start thinking, the voice in my head has an American accent, and that's been really useful because it takes I'm lazy, see, so it takes a thought away from you, so I don't have to think about how I'm sounding on every line when I'm doing it, because it's become kind of second nature to me. So I find it really useful, and but it's something I came to very late.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Lennie.
Hello.
So I was pondering my question, and I remember the first time I saw when the show first started and the first episode was on, and I started watching it, and I got to the part where the little girl turned around, and I said no. And I turned it off. But I gave it another shot, and I'm glad I did, because I feel like the show is, you have to get invested in the characters. And so once I did that, it was, I became hooked on the show. So my question is kind of two questions. Do you have a favorite episode? And secondly, who would, aside from yourself, who would be your favorite character from the show?
Oh, wow. Wow. Boy, you're not asking much, are you? I think I have a number of favourite scenes. I was very lucky with Morgan, and that he was kind of given two kind of standout episodes. So there was Clear and there was Here's Not Here, that really just focused on his character. So I have a number of scenes that are my favourite scenes, and a number of episodes that are my favourite episodes. But if I had to, gun to head, pick one, it would probably be Clear, which is the episode when Morgan comes back after the first episode and is in a room with Rick, and it was just me and Andy in a room. And it was partly because of that scene, which is one of my favourite scenes, but it was also the way that the crew worked around that scene, because they had realised that it was basically, although it was cut up to be like 5 or 6 different scenes, it was one long scene. And they set up the whole day so that we could just do it as one long scene. So it was like myself and Andy doing a 2-man play. And the concentration they gave us and the support that they gave us, it went a long way for why I said yes when they asked me to come back long term, was because of how the crew reacted on that one. So that was a big deal for me. I think as far as favourite characters are concerned, I've got a soft spot for Eugene. I just think that he's a kind of crazy, unique kind of character, and I think Josh does an amazing job with him. I have another soft spot for Abraham, partly because I think Kudlitz is an amazing actor, and one of my big regrets is that we never got to do a scene together before they smashed his head in with a baseball bat. Who does that? Oh, should I have said spoiler before that? Maybe. I'll remember that next time. But I have to say that when I saw Michonne's entrance into the show, when she's just walking across the field of zombies, leading the others, oh my word, I just thought that was the best entrance to a character ever. So it would be one of those 3 plus loads more, because they've become friends, and I probably should say that I love them all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is this thing on? Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you out here. I guess, well, my question is like a multi-part kind of thing. It's mainly around the staff thing. So I guess my question is, what are some highlights and specifics of when you were training with it? And how do you like play into like the emotion in the episodes where like it's related to like the issues, between killing zombies and people and stuff like that?
Firstly, when Scott said to me that when Morgan comes back, he will come with a bow staff, I thought it was the perfect, iconic weapon for Morgan. It utterly symbolises where his heart and mind are, because at once the bow staff is just a stick that you can use to help you walk, but if it's swung in the right way, it's both a deadly weapon and a weapon that keeps people at their distance, and that fits perfectly with Morgan's mindset of, all life is precious and we should try as hard as we possibly can not to harm each other to the point of death. As far as the bow staff itself, one of the things I love most about the job that I do is the new skills I acquire in order to do it. So I've learned to ride motorbikes and shoot guns and climb mountains and scuba dive and drive cars very, very quickly backwards. And I've enjoyed them all. And I train with a master called Stephen Ho, who was the original Donatello in the Ninja Turtle movies. He was the guy in the suit, and he trains me. And I enjoy it immensely, because I never expected, particularly at my time of life, that I was going to acquire this new skill, and I absolutely love it. And I made the mistake of saying to Scott and the folks on The Walking Dead that I didn't want anybody coming in and making me look better than I actually am. So I didn't want any stunt doubles coming in for anything other than falls or things that are, hits, in which that I might get. If it's me, we won't be able to do it more than once if I get hit. So every time the stick is swung, it's me. And that was, I thought it was a sensible thing to say at the beginning. 3 years on, I wish I'd kept my mouth shut, because I have to practice all the time and I have to keep up to date, so that anything they ask me to do, I'm able to do. But it's a huge amount of fun, and I take it as a gift that I get the opportunity to play with it.
Okay. I actually have one other quick question.
Oh, go on then.
Have you and the rest of the cast ever, like, whether it was like for fun or just like during a break, have you ever like tried out each other's weapons, props, stuff like that?
Well, you touch Denai's samurai sword at your own risk, but when we were doing one of the, slightly answers your question, and obviously I've picked up the crossbow and the python and tried out all the weapons. There were two that are my favourites, and one of them is Jerry's axe. And so Cooper, who plays Jerry, he's quite a big fella, and he's an incredibly strong human being. So his axe, there is like with all of our weapons, we have soft versions that you use during stunts and stuff. So Jerry's soft version has a soft axe, and people kind of pick it up and swing it around. But Cooper himself always uses the heavy one, the real one. And every now and then, somebody thinks it's the soft one and goes to pick it up, and it's like Thor's hammer. So they pick it up and they can't lift it off the ground. And then Cooper will come up and go, it's just that, it's easy. So messing around with his axe is kind of fun. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Lenny.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm glad
There's a light just over there above everybody's head, just shining right in my eyes, so I can't actually see anybody's face. But hello.
Hello. I'm glad that you mentioned Clear, because that has some of the most compelling acting in the series. I just wanted to ask you, when you play the Clear version of Morgan, the insane version of Morgan, where do you draw from in order to portray that on film?
Here's a thing for me. I always take it from the script. So I read the script and 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 I read the script. I don't learn lines. I read the script and I read the script. And if there's anything I am frequently saying to the writers of both shows, both on Fear and on The Walking Dead, it is, you guys wrote this. I'm just trying to play it. And that's what I do. And if you break down what Morgan's gone through on Clear and just remove it from the zombie apocalypse and just have it on as a regular guy's life. This man lost his wife, wasn't able to take her life because he loved her so much. He's a man who defined himself by who he was married to and who he was the father of. And he loses both of those to a certain extent because of his own doing, because he didn't end his wife's suffering. His wife turned out to kill his son, and he's lost both of those things. That would drive anybody crazy. So for me, it was only about the degree in which we take him down that road, but those emotions are understandable regardless of the situation. So I just played what was real and what was human and what made sense to me, and that's what I try to do with all of my characters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lennie. Before I get to my question, I just wanted to note, I'm an actor, so I appreciate what you just mentioned about your technique in regards to lines like reading the script and reading the script and reading the script. It's partly what I've done too. But then again, I do theater mostly, so I have to read the script.
I'm a theatre boy. That's where I get my training from. I trained in the theatre.
Oh, great, fantastic. It's even better. The question that I had was in regards to, I believe you were on Human Target?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, you did some episodes. I thought it was a great show. I was curious about what your experiences were like working on Human Target, and I don't know if you want to go into this. Why do you think the show didn't last as long as it maybe should have? Because it was only around for about 2 seasons.
I don't know why it didn't last as long. It was, I enjoyed doing it. I mean, as a kind of side note, I will say, because there's a lot of stories get told about Hollywood and how cutthroat it is and how people only care about themselves and not other people. I have to say that my role in Human Target came about because I came over to do Jericho, and I had a contract which meant I could only work for CBS. And then literally 5 days after I moved my family to America and put my kids in school, Jericho was cancelled. So, and I couldn't, my kids would, I'd literally paid for the whole year for my kids to be in school, so I had to stay in America, but my visa was going to run out. And John Steinberg, who was the creator of Human Target and also was the creator of Jericho, he heard about that, and he offered me a role in Human Target, the pilot, which I couldn't do because one of the other writers from Jericho, who had also heard about my situation, offered me a role in their pilot. And I picked the other pilot, which didn't actually go to a television series. And John said, doesn't matter, we'll create a part for you in Human Target.
Wow.
And it saved my family.
Wow, it's a great story. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hiya.
Thank you. I have just 3 questions and 1 favor. My first question is, do you ever think there's gonna be a cure?
For the zombie plague?
Yeah.
God, I hope so. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be a good ending?
Yeah.
That there's a cure and everybody, you walk in the tent in one way and you come out and everybody's dancing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe break into a song. We're not dead anymore. We're not dead anymore. Thank God Almighty, we're not dead anymore. I'd love that. So I don't know if there's going to be a cure, but I do know they're going to have to figure out some way of bringing the show to an end, and maybe a cure would be a good way of doing it.
And if there was a cure, do you know what that might be in it?
What might be in the cure? I don't know. Honey, I hope. I don't know. Spoonful of sugar? I don't know. I don't know. But I'm sure if there is a cure, they'll come up with something.
And my final question is, do you ever think Rick is going to pass away?
Rick?
Because he's been here since
Are you
the start.
fishing? Is that what you're doing now? I don't know whether or not Rick is going to pass away, but I mean, he's still alive in the comics, right? So anything could kind of happen. I know my character is no longer alive in the comics, but I'm still here. So, you know, anything is possible.
Yeah.
Which would you like? Would you like Rick to?
I just thought he was going to stay alive for the whole thing, because he's been ever since the beginning.
But I thought that with Carl. That was the one that really surprised me. I got a telephone call and I was in Studio City buying a hat. And Scott phoned me up and said, I don't know if you've heard, but we're killing Carl. And I went, are you beeping sure? And he went, yeah, we kind of have to. And he started explaining it to me and I was like, yeah, hold on. Are you bleeping sure? I mean, are you really bleeping sure? Because you're going to need to be really bleeping sure, because if you're not bleeping sure, people are going to bleep and kill you. And so that was the biggest, genuinely, that was the biggest shock.
Okay. And my only favor is, but you asked the director to put, you know, the comic, if they put it in there and they find it, they could use it as like a guide for what to do.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll text him as soon as I'm finished.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, nice talking to you.
It is really interesting though how they really have shifted where the show is diametrically different from the comic book canon. You really can't go off of the comic books for any direction for the show. There are characters that have been gone for years that are still in the comic book.
I mean, if we stuck to the comic books, we wouldn't have Carol today in the way that we've got Carol today. And if there's ever been a justification for diverging from the comic books, it's who Carol is today and the fact that we still have Melissa in the show.
Yes.
And I also think that it's, all joking apart, I think it's a really important thing that we need to do on the television show that is different to the comics, because what we're not doing is just putting the comics on screen. We are using the same source material, some of the characters and not all of the characters, because also if we stuck to the comic books, we wouldn't have Daryl, because he's not in them. Yeah. So it's always been there, and sometimes we're going to take a big swerve and sometimes we're not. But it's important, both for us as storytellers and for you guys as the audience, that we sometimes differentiate between the experience of reading this story as opposed to watching this story.
So true. Back to the questions.
Hi, welcome to Hawaii, by the way. You said that you're a writer. Did you ever think about writing a couple episodes for either Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead?
No. No. No, and that's really important because, you know, here's the thing. Acting is a very sociable experience. I can't do it without other people. Writing is a very solitary experience. It's just you in a room with a blank screen or a blank piece of paper. I hate writing at its core. I love acting at its core. There are some times when I hate acting because it's just, I don't know, annoying, boring, or I want to be someplace else. And sometimes I love writing, but at its core, the solitariness, the blank page scares me. So if I'm going to do the writing, it has to be something that I'm absolutely passionate about and a story that I can't tell any other way and can't give away to anybody else. It has to be me writing it, which is why I don't write much. But when I do write, it's a passion project and it's something I have to see from beginning to end. So I'm not a jobbing writer. I wish I was. I wish I could learn that craft, but I can't. It has to be my idea, has to be something that is bursting to get out of me, and the things that I write, those are all of the ones that I do it. I love both The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, but I don't have the skill set to be a writer on those shows. It's not something I do. It's this season of Fear, in episode 12 of the season that starts again on Sunday the 12th of August, episode 12 is directed by Coleman Domingo, who plays Strand in the show. And he does a remarkable job. He's really shown that he can act in and direct on both levels and with equal stunningness. I admire him, I couldn't do it. So I stay very much in my box. I know what I can do and I know what I can't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out here.
Thank you.
Do you have any funny memories of working on set of The Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead?
I do, yeah, I got so many. Just as you were asking that question, my head just filtered through like 20 different fun experiences on the show, from, I don't know, the gags that Norman and Andy play on each other to, one of the ones that's only because it just came to mind, is Garrett Dillahunt, who plays John Dory on Fear the Walking Dead. He kind of came onto the show at the same time that I did, and he's a very quiet soul, a very kind of calm man, but he's incredibly funny. And he has a stand-in, a stunt double, who the ladies love. He's a very good-looking fella, and he's in remarkable good shape. And he came onto the set one day, and everybody was talking about how much he looked like Garrett. And Garrett went, yeah, he does, he looks just like me. Lift up your top and show them how fantastic our six-pack is. And he just came straight out of it, and it made us all crack up and laugh. So that's one of the funny experiences, but it's one of many. Nice. I'd tell you another one, is that we had when Shiva came onto the show, the tiger, at the Kingdom, because it's, I don't hope I'm not bursting anybody's bubble here, but it's an animatronic. But one of the things it was is that we did have a puppet of the tiger, and which basically, there were only two things the tiger could do, which was stand up or lie down. That was it. That was the only things that it had. And the rest of the time, it was our special effects guy with a tiger head just walking around the set like that. And on some of the footage, you could see Victor with the tiger head on the early cuts. So like when we go in to do our voice work on it, because we didn't get the sound good, you would see Victor walking around with a tiger head, and that was very funny. If you knew Victor, you'd laugh more, but you know, so it's okay. It amuses me, but thank you.
Nice.
Hi, Lennie.
Hello.
My question is going to be about the crossover from Fear, from Walking Dead to Fear. Now, Walking Dead being this huge juggernaut of a show, and Fear being a little lesser show. Great show, but still lesser. My question is, everybody wanted to, when the news broke, we all were guessing who's going over, who's going to go over. I thought it was Abraham, I thought it was Rosita. Your storyline was more with Rick and Carol. So my question is, how was you chosen to go over, or did you petition for it? Did they put you all in a room and say who wants to go over, or how was it done that they said, Morgan, Lennie James, you're going over?
I didn't petition for it at all. In fact, I probably was the last person on the planet who knew anything about the crossover. I was like, crossover? What crossover? When are we doing this? What? We're doing a crossover? Nice, excellent. Who's it going to be? So it literally came about at the beginning of every season. All of the main actors have a sit down with Scott Gimple. And you sit down and he tells you what he's got in mind for your character over that season and whether or not you're going to live or die. And it's at that meeting that you mostly find out whether you're going to make it or not make it. And so what it mostly means is, while he's talking, and Scott talks for like 40 minutes, you're not listening to a word of it because all you're waiting to find out is, do you live or do you die? And then when you get to the end of it and he goes, well, basically, that's your story, you go, great, excellent. Could you just say all of that again because I wasn't listening, now that I know I live or die? So that's what I thought my meeting was. In fact, I went up to Scott's place, had that meeting, he told me what the journey was for my character over that season, and then I drove home. And then a day later, he said, oh, by the way, there's something else I need to talk to you about. And I thought, oh my God, he forgot to tell me that I'm dying. So I drove back in a cold sweat, went back to Scott's house and sat down, and he said, listen, his role in the Walking Dead universe was going to change. He was going to step back from the show and he was going to turn into the kind of Oz of both shows. And Angela Kang was going to take over on The Walking Dead as the kind of on-site showrunner. And I said, great, thank you, thanks for telling me that. Could have told me that on a telephone call, but okay. And then he said, and how would you like to continue Morgan's story over at Fear? And all I heard was ringing in my ears. And he carried on talking and I wasn't really listening because the only thing I could think was, if I say yes to this, it means I'm leaving the show. And that was the first thought. And then at the end of it, he said, do you have any questions? And I said, I don't. I don't have any questions because I don't know what I think and I don't know what I feel. I need to speak to my wife and I'd like permission to speak to Andy. And he said, let me speak to Andy first, but absolutely. And I drove home, I spoke to my wife and she went, what? What? What does that mean? And I went, I don't know. She said, what questions did you ask? And I go, I didn't ask any. She said, you're an idiot. And I went, I know, that's why I'm speaking to you. And then me and Andy went to the cinema and we watched the film and then we had a meal afterwards and we kind of talked it through and then I started to formulate questions and figure out whether or not it was a good thing, not just for me, but most importantly, whether it was a good thing for my character. And in the end, I decided that it was, and that I was being offered a very unique experience as an actor. And you know, it feels like I've been in the show for 10 years, but actually, for the first 5 years of this show, I only did 3 episodes. I did the first episode, I did Clear, and I did the finale of season 5. And so I've only been a regular for kind of 3 years. So it was a way of exploring the character at a speed and at a level that isn't possible on The Walking Dead because there's so many characters. And it was an opportunity to get a little bit more Morgan focused in a way that could happen on The Walking Dead, but it would just take a lot longer. And that my character had already died in the comics, and The Walking Dead, although they do diverge from the comics, there are certain points they have to hit. You know, Negan has to arrive. You know, all of those things have to happen, and I'm not sure that they could hold on to Morgan in the way that they wanted to hold on to Morgan in the main show, and Fear was a way of exploring him a little bit more before he finishes.
Nice.
Cool, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that'll be our last question. Thank you so much. And let's give a great round of applause.
Thank you very much.